Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Tuesday, August 14th, 2018 Board of Supervisors meeting for Placer County. We will begin our meeting with a flag salute led by Supervisor Duran.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Duran. Our next item is the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda have been recommended for approval by the County Executive Department. All items will be approved in a single roll call vote. Anyone may ask to address consent items prior to the board taking action, and the item may be moved for discussion. Is there anyone here, any board member want any items pulled off for discussion? Seeing none, County Executive, you have none?
The only item I'd propose we move to a future date, and this is under department items 10B.
Okay.
We have some continual discussions we'd like to have on that item. Otherwise,
Okay.
Everything else on the agenda can move forward.
Anybody in the audience have an item on the consent agenda they wish to have removed for discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Oh, roll call. Sorry, thanks. Glad you're here. We need a roll call vote, please.
Duran. Yes. Wygant. Yes. Euler. Montgomery. And Holmes.
Aye. Supervisor Montgomery can't be with us today. She's away on family business. Now is the time for public comment. Persons may address the board on items not on this agenda. Please limit comments to 3 minutes per person, since the time allocated is for 15 minutes. If all comments cannot be heard within the 15-minute time limit, the public comment period will be taken up at the end of the regular session. The board is not permitted to take any action on items addressed under public comment. We do have a short agenda. We have a 1 o'clock item that shouldn't take too long. So if we can't hear all your public comment in the time allotted, we will come back after the 1 o'clock item to hear the rest. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Bradley Cutler. Good morning, gentlemen and ladies. Oops, missing. On June 25th, after a year of repeated requests, you responded to us with a partial review of the open space requirements for our Tree Lake Division. And on the 10th of July, we provided you with a preliminary review of that document, and included which were a number of questions and requests to correct many of the errors of the report. It's been over a month, and we're just looking to see if you have any updates for us. In the county's response, Deputy Director Evaldi made numerous statements and assumptions, and I just wanted to point out a couple that we had some issue with. He stated that the current open space calculations are above what was designated in the original Tree Lake Development Plan in '87. While that may have been correct in '87, his statement is somewhat misleading, if not incorrect, as the Planning Director Yeager noted after a comprehensive review of the plan development requirements in 1996 memo that the Tree Lake Village's original developers provided 14.99% open space, which is 83 acres, and included undefined uses within the transmission line easements of the southern portion of the project. The county's recent calculation identified 63 acres of open space, including 4 vacant residential lots whose owners have yet to realize that their acres have been taken for public use. The 63 acres is 22 acres below what was approved for the Tree Lake Village Development Agreement. And the Moss Development violated the open space requirements because his acres were set aside for open space. Mr. Evaldi justifies the comment that even if the amounts were less, my understanding is the storage facility would be a vested right for the reasons explained in the courts on April 3rd, 2018, that affirmed the storage facility designation. His understanding is incorrect, as the court did not, has not, and will not affirm the use of commercial mini storage in a residential neighborhood. The court simply stated that the master conditional use permit for the development was valid in '96 for the use identified and for the final subdivision map. The map showed and still shows the site as a vacant lot, and Commissioner Moss never submitted nor approved by the Board of Supervisors a vested tentative map for the mini storage facility he constructed. And if he had, it would have been valid for only 6 years, not 20. Mr. Rivaldi goes into an incorrect discussion about 12.5% minimum open space. And I'm running out of time here, so you each have this particular item before you. So we're just requesting a complete and competent review of the land use requirements for our Tree Lake Village plan development and confirm that it has met the community's open space requirements, if you will. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Scott Vaughn, Tree Lake Village, Granite Bay. So it's been a few weeks. I'm here to once again ask for open and honest government, transparency, and non-selective enforcement, you can all say it, of county codes and state laws for appointed officials. You all have a packet, of course, with the evidence that we're going to talk about. Since the county has provided substantial and compelling evidence that the Planning Commissioner Moss has committed forgery per Penal Code 4740, the crime of falsely making or altering a writing by which the legal rights or obligations of another person are apparently affected, and fraud, Penal Code 115 PC, which makes it a crime to knowingly file, register, or record a false or forged document with the government office in the state. Residents of my community are once again asking for his removal. Planning Commissioner Moss, in his own writing and his own signature, forged not one but 10 building permits of the 40,000 square foot illegally zoned mini storage, assigning them to a parcel that they weren't placed on, and knowingly building them on a watershed parcel next door. Okay, and you say, oh, well, what do you mean you admitted? Well, look at the evidence. He committed fraud by submitting these documents and registering them with the government office in your state. You should not reward bad behavior by breaking both civil and criminal laws by allowing him the privilege of enforcing these for Placer County, nor continue to allow him to be a class of 1 in a residential agricultural zoning district per California Government Code 65852, a zoning law which guarantees uniform land use. Ms. Kristen Spears, hats off to her, thank you, has done her job. She moved these buildings after we brought it up onto the proper parcel. You have the tax record, the 2 tax record for the parcel. The first one shows there's open space from 17. This year's shows it with the buildings that she moved from the other parcel, where they're physically located, and you have a map. Under the oath of obligation to uphold the law for the general public and not the benefit of an individual, it is time that you, the board, do the same. With this substantial evidence of 10 fraudulent permits, any actions not taken by you are, as Supervisor Euler previously alluded to, conspiracy and multiple graft violations of complicity, cronyism, favoritism, and influence peddling. Either Ms. Spears is wrong or Planning Commissioner Moss is wrong. So either the permits are wrong or the tax record is wrong. You can't have it both ways. This is 10 buildings over 3 years, okay? This is not, oops, I made one mistake. This is knowingly put it on the wrong parcel. You have a map. They're located on parcel 44 where he built them, on a watershed. The other thing I'll bring up in the tax record is there are absolutely 0 land improvements. He put in 5 acres of pavement, asphalt, fencing, drainage, and yet no tax record on any of it. So he's gotten off free for 20 years. I'd like this board to take a stand and correct the problem and remove Commissioner Moss for fraudulently doing this type of activity. It doesn't belong there.
Thank you.
Just a brief comment. As usual, Mr. Vaughn has presented absolutely no evidence to support his allegations, and it's not surprising why he's unsuccessful in court where his allegations are subject to the burden of proof.
I've given you tax bills where you've moved them. I've given you building permits that show you that it's zoned on the wrong parcel. Those are exactly what my statements were. You have an inconsistency, Mr. Cardin. So the evidence is here, regardless of what your facts, what you just said there. That's not the truth.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Paulson. I live in Auburn. I am a reverend and a pastor at New Faith United Church of Christ in Loomis. And I'm here today as part of a group of faith leaders in our communities, the Clergy Voice, representing faith communities and Placer People of Faith together, alongside Placer County's New Poor People's Campaign, as we rise to address you during public comment regarding the growing moral crisis in this nation. Many of us attended and some addressed the recent contentious special meeting on SB 54. Today we bring a wider concern for our vulnerable brothers and sisters caused by an erosion of the moral visions of our prophets such as Ezekiel, Jesus, and Martin. 50 years after MLK's Poor People's Campaign, these ancestors in faith call us to walk humbly, love justice, and do mercy in the name of the Lord. We are here to proclaim a moral fusion of social justice issues, and you will hear a few of us speak to those that burn most passionately in our hearts. Please listen as we paint a vision where each person, each and every resident of Placer County will feel protected, respected, and treated equally and fairly, regardless of age, gender, sexual orientation or identity, citizen statusship, or income level. It is, after all, what you just pledged to our flag, liberty and justice for all. We look forward to working with you to create solutions that achieve these goals.
Thank you. Mr. Salatino, it's nice to see you.
Good morning, Mr. Holmes.
Good morning.
My name is Lou Salatino. I've lived in Auburn for over 30 years and raised my family here. I'm a retired school teacher from Auburn. I represent the Protect Rural Placer Committee, which is opposed to the parking lot proposed on Bell Road in our area. I live 1 mile from that location. We moved here, and Highway 49 was a 2-lane blood alley, and now it's a 5-lane freeway. We have taught our children not to take that road to get into town, and we commuted to work every day to EVK Middle School via back roads, and that's how I got here today. If you put in a parking lot for the Hidden Falls project on our road, you're going to take that safe route away from us because the traffic will increase 4-fold at a minimum. We would like to see you reconsider purchasing that property and putting in a parking lot for people that aren't in Auburn. There's a song I think that would go well with this project. It's from Joni Mitchell. She said, "Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? Pave paradise, put up a parking lot." We don't want that parking lot. It will not make our roads safe, and you haven't solved the problems yet at the first parking lot on Mears Road. That needs to be addressed before you look into our area. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. I'm Jean Piette, and I live at 5395 Bell Road, and I'm speaking on the same subject, Hidden Falls Bell Road access. I've written a few letters to the editor. I hope you read them, because that would give you a little more than what I have time to talk about today. But today I'm hoping that you will hear those of us and what we have to say about the impact that it's making on our lives. I'd like to talk about fire. I know that you all know about fire, and it seems silly to even point out the fire dangers. But when you think about the woodlands and the gorges that are not accessed readily, and then you talk about adding population to those areas, it puts us at risk, and it puts fear in our lives. I'd like to talk about the fact that the environmental impact report hasn't come out yet. And it seems as though most people that we've talked to don't seem to have anything to say until the impact report comes out. They can't make any statements because they're waiting for the environmental impact. It seems like it's a very important part of what you're doing. But we're concerned that by the time it's done and you have it in your hands, that's going to be right about the time you're going to be making a decision to sign the paper to make the decision to purchase the property that is at 5345 Bell Road, my neighbor. It's very important to have an environmental impact. We just read the conservation plan. They're going to be saving the tricolored blackbird. That's very important. They're going to be saving and protecting the fairy shrimp. That's also very important. I'm in favor of all the environmental moves that are being taken. I support all of that. I guess my question is, where is the people impact report? I haven't heard anything from anyone about how it's going to impact the people in the community. We just heard a gentleman talk about the traffic concern, and that's just one of the things that we are concerned about. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Ginger Foster. I'm pastor of the Pioneer United Methodist Church here in Auburn. I'm new to Auburn, but I wanted to rise to speak to you, as Jerry said, about that liberty and justice for all. And we find that if we're going to have liberty and justice for all, and that means not only in the United States but in Auburn, we need to tackle several things. One is poverty. The other is racism. The other is ecological devastation. The other is our attitude towards war. And the final is our morals, how we live our lives. And we need to change a lot of things. And I've noticed several things since I came to Auburn. I read different statistics. Somewhere between 25 and 50% of children in this nation are living in poverty. And I have found that to be true in Auburn. We have more and more children in our shelters, and that concerns me. In terms of systematic racism, that's when we deny the humanity of others and show no respect, and it leads to violence and all kinds of horrible things. And it goes against our common values. And I think we see that in Auburn at times when we talk about, as we did several weeks ago, about hard topics, and we aren't necessarily kind to each other or staying true to our values. And I don't think I need to say too much about ecological devastation when we're sitting in the middle of fires. I moved here from Mariposa. And for the second year in a row, Mariposa has been devastated, both by the fire and the ecological impact it has to our tourists in trying to come to Yosemite. And so I don't need to say very much about that. We see it all around us. And I also am very aware, having lived in multiple parts of this state, that there's places in our state that do not have safe drinking water. That's ridiculous. This is the United States of America. This is California, and that should not be how it is. I'd also like to talk about how we have a culture that is very invested in war, and so we end up paying a lot of money to contractors. And yet, even in my short time in Auburn, I have run into vets, some of whom are Vietnam vets, and they have been wandering this country without good mental health care. And I've talked to vets in this area that finally found housing, but they don't have transportation. We need to consider our morals and make sure that we are living and making choices that do, in fact, provide liberty and justice for all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Morning.
Morning. My name is Pastor Casey Tinnen. I have served in Placer County for 5 years. I am the pastor of Loomis Basin Congregational Church, United Church of Christ, 6440 King Road in Loomis. This morning I come before you on behalf of my congregation who is concerned about the most vulnerable of our community. Before I go further, I would like to read Ezekiel 16:49, which states, "Now this was a sin of Sodom. They were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy." For anyone who has any knowledge of this scripture, God did not look favorably on Sodom because of their unwillingness to take care of the poor and the foreigner. It was angels who showed up among them, and yet their greed and their fear and their bias blinded them from seeing the blessing before their very eyes. There are many scriptures that point us in the direction of welcoming others and looking after the poor among us. And that is why I stand before you this morning as a concerned member of this community. When we hear that this voting body would consider taking a vote to make it less safe for immigrants and their families to move through this community, that is an abomination. When we hear that this voting body continues to find ways to make it illegal for the homeless in this community, when there is a major shortage of affordable housing, that, friends, is an abomination. Often in life, we have two perspectives on how we will make any decision, the short game and the long game. This morning I come before you to ask you to consider the long game of history. It certainly can be easy to play to the short game in politics. In an attempt to appease the overly emotional, irrational, or fearful mob whose foresight is only as far as the red hats in which they wear, vote and want you to vote against immigrants and the poor, that is easy. But instead, I would invite you to look to the long game. The long game that says that the demographics of this community and your constituents are changing. Indeed, times are a-changing in history, and God will judge us on the way in which you, navigate the future. I would remind you that God told Lot and his family as they fled Sodom to never look back. Only look forward unless you want to be frozen in time as a pillar of salt. We have no time to get stuck looking backward. There are desperate, vulnerable, and needy people in our community who deserve respect and dignity. I would invite you to join us as clergy to help in the arc of justice, or be prepared to answer why you failed to see the bigger picture. Because if there is anything that history teaches us, it is that the long game is laced with progress and is kind to those who have been kind. So I thank you for not taking a vote, and I thank you for listening. Together as clergy, we will be meeting outside of these chambers after this public comment time to answer any questions from the press or to share our moral vision for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Morning.
Morning. I'm Rabbi Susan Conforti. I live in Auburn. In addition to being part of Clergy Voice, I'm also a member of the Union of Concerned Scientists, and I want to urge the Board of Supervisors to listen to the best science available to save us from the fires that are raging. I want to share a personal story. I was living in Southern California and had to just pack up to evacuate. The fire was about a mile away. And I was so tense, I started crying just from having packed up my car. And it occurred to me just recently that many people don't have even the luxury of packing up a car with their stuff, knowing that they had money for a hotel. They don't have money for a hotel. Some enormous figure of people don't have $400 to their name saved up for an emergency. And think about it. Your clothes that you're wearing now probably cost almost that much, and they don't have it. What kind of terror is there? They can't go to work. They can't go to school. They can't feed their families or take care of them in an emergency. This is what I ask you to think about. Not just that there's a fire, but that the poorest among us are disproportionately affected by it. So I ask you to work together to to remedy this situation the best that you can using the best science available. Thank you.
Thank you. Bart, before you speak, I see the gentleman in the back. Is there anyone else? I'm going to allow the people in line. Is Donna, did you want to speak? Okay, so anybody else? Okay, Donna, you'll be the last one then. What? Huh? Oh, okay. So there's 5 more public comment. Anyone else? We'll meet afterwards to hear your comments. Mr. Bart, how you doing?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Bart Rude, Kramer Road, Auburn, and I come to stand before you today to talk about the neighborhood's rejection, the Bell Road's neighborhood rejection of the staging area that would be put in at 5345 Bell Road as an additional access to Hidden Falls. First point, expansion of the Hidden Falls trail system amounts to urbanization of a historic rural agricultural neighborhood. Second point, urbanization creates yet another endangered species. In this case, the endangered species is the farmer, the rancher, or in a simple word, the agriculturalist. Third point, the criticality of the negative impact of a trail system imposed on grazing land must be understood and appreciated. Bicyclists, equestrians, hikers with dogs, even dogs on leashes, do not constitute compatible uses on grazing land. A trail system imposed on that 2,500 acres north of Hidden Falls will eliminate ranching and cattle production on that acreage. It is not compatible to have all of that kind of activity amongst grazing animals. Preservation of agricultural land, including grazing land, is a critical need as we face a growing population that will seek affordable food products. Agriculture and the production of beef in Placer County is a critically important contributor to our economic vitality. A 2017 ag census found almost 12,000 head of cattle in Placer County. A 2016 crop report for Placer County valued cow-calf production at more than $8.33 million, making it the third most valuable agricultural industry in Placer County. It makes good economic sense to preserve agriculture. I see in today's agenda that you'll have a 2017 crop report for Placer County, and I expect that cow-calf industry will, again, be a very high number for Placer County. It's not something to take lightly. Placer County already has a substantial population of nearly 50,000 residents who face food insecurity issues. A reduction of these lands between Hidden Falls and Bear River from agricultural usage will exacerbate food insecurity issues in Placer County. Last point, there should be no perceived obligation to provide additional trails in this locale. The Auburn State Recreation Area and the Tahoe and the El Dorado National Forest have hundreds of thousands of easily accessible acres that can be utilized for hiking, biking, and riding. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for your critical thinking skills, which should help us to all comprehend the criticality of negating expansion of the Hidden Falls trail system. That trail system will subvert the value of agriculture in Placer County. I don't think any of us wants that on his or her resume. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bart. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Honorable Chair and members of the Board of Supervisors. I am Reverend Carol Carter. I live in Auburn. I'm a retired United Methodist clergywoman, and I've been here for 6 years. With Placer People of Faith clergy, I am here today to join them in their voices lifted for justice in our community. In particular, I am here to lift up the need for change in our old criminal justice system. That system believes strong punishment and long isolation gives offenders what they deserve. That is not the question anymore. The question is, can we stand with our county and state and local law enforcement, can we stand together to protect everyone in the community? This will mean looking at the criminal justice system from the perspective of restorative justice. The goal of an effective restorative justice system is to set things right for the victim, first of all, for the offender also, and for the whole community. There are practices of restorative justice used in many counties in California. It is the kind of most excellent practice or best practice that is advocated by the state of California criminal justice system. But it's very slow for local communities to adopt this perspective and to endorse it and to work for it. I know because Placer People of Faith Together went to the probation department. We met with the courts. We did some instruction about restorative justice at the juvenile court. And the probation department adopted, the court adopted a program, a pilot program in restorative justice. The problem was they didn't follow it. We offered them resources. They ignored them. They used some person they already had on staff to do something that's entirely inappropriate with youth. So I'm here to say it's not enough to give lip service to restorative justice. You have a community collaborative that addresses these kinds of issues. Hasn't met for a long time, but we in Placer People have been meeting with you whenever you do meet, and we want to continue to be at the table with you to look at what practices can we do differently here so that we aren't sending juveniles to prison, so that we are actually considering how to restore people's lives. People who commit crimes are at a huge disadvantage because of the way our system locks them up and throws away the key, pretty much. They don't really do that, but they get out eventually, and they're very highly disabled by their experience in jail or prison. So that's what our concern is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I just want to begin by saying that Ms. Williams has graciously offered her place to me, so that's why I'm here at the podium in her place.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Dave Davidson Mateau, and I am not a resident of Placer County. I live in western Nevada County. However, for the past 5 years, I have operated a psychology practice in downtown Auburn in the Courtview Plaza building at 1230 High Street. Since I have returned to the Gold Country, I've been active in the clergy voice group of Placer People of Faith Together, and that's why I'm here before you today. Let me give you some of my background and explain why I'm here. I first came to the Gold Country in 1982 and was the interim pastor at Church of Our Savior in Placerville. From 1983 to 1990, I was the rector of Emmanuel Episcopal Church in downtown Grass Valley. I left that church to take a large church down in suburban Los Angeles. While I was there, I was confronted with human behavior that I did not understand. The kinds of good Christian people who did bad things, who fomented discord, who told lies, who created factions and divisions within my own church, drove me back to school, and I earned a PhD in clinical psychology. For the last 20 years, I've worked full-time in mental health. In that time, we've seen 4 of our state mental hospitals closed. We've seen our prison population burgeon, and we've seen more and more homeless mentally ill on the streets. That impacts me both as a pastor and as a psychologist. More recently, that experience of systematic evil, of what, as a psychologist, I know as human shadow, I've seen written on the national stage: scapegoating, lying, power plays, greed, and avarice. As a psychologist, I know that those are called outward manifestations of unconscious shadow. As a priest, I know them more simply by the word sin. Please do not fall into that trap, as so many others have. I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is David Carl Skint. If my last name is familiar to you, it's because some of you may know my father, who's been very active in Lincoln politics for some years. He currently serves on the board on the city council there. Gentlemen, I just simply came today to speak to the power of architecture. I'm a partner in a small architecture firm here in the area. My office is right down in Newcastle, and it's recently come to my attention that our area is facing a crisis of affordable housing and or shelter for the homeless. And so I've simply come this morning to introduce myself and say that I'd like to get to know all of you better and like to give back to the community that's given so much to me that I appreciate so much, and look forward to seeing you on a more personal basis in attempts to utilize my firm's resources in order to help solve some of the local problems that we seem to all be facing. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good morning, Donna. Thanks for being so patient.
My name's Donna Williams, and we've lived here in Placer County since 1970s. The basic question I wanted to ask, a couple of months ago, I had come to the board and asked if you would take us out of the sanctuary county, and I'm just wondering what your decision was now.
We held the meeting, there was no decision made.
No decision made.
Right.
Which totally tempts me to bring the Constitution and hand you each a copy of it. But the other, it just seems illogical. What I'm thinking about is this. If you take a law of the Constitution, which you have to be legal to come into this country, you have to obey the laws to get in here, and you give sanctuary, well then what I'm asking for then, how about Placer County taxpayers? Added my taxes up, I pay $4,821.24 in property tax a year. Well, how about, could we be sanctuary property tax people, not have to pay the property tax? It's a law, right? So would you extend, maybe we don't have to pay property taxes? Just interest. The other comment I'd like to make, and I think is really important, we get to see so many things that on the news for any business across the country.
Donna, we can't hear you. You have to speak.
Across the country, we get to see all the different problems. But I do a lot of volunteer work within the county parks, and there are a lot of phenomenal, great people out there attempting to do things. We, across our culture, I think we have an evolution which I think we all can be better people. Mm-hmm. I really think that that's where we're going. We just have a lot of problems to work through in between. So I think that we're moving in that direction. And as I said, I work with volunteers, I work with county parks, and these trails, when you look at them, I understand where he's talking about his property, but when you think about, if you just get a chance to watch the expressions on the families that come out, the elderly citizens that hike and stuff, and the runners that, look at all the huge run community we have. These trails are important, and that the park that's out there, that Hidden Falls, that's instrumental in the well-being of our people for them to be able to walk on those trails out there. It's one of my really good friends is an emergency room. She retired from ER nurse, and I retired as an NICU nurse, and we both almost simultaneously said being able to ride our horses out there in the trail after stress, it was our zen in life. So we have to, for our culture, we have to find things that help make our culture better, and I think the Trails of Hidden Falls offers a lot of that too. And so I really thank you for your time, but we're going in the right direction. We just have to work at it.
Thank you, Donna.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, that closes our public comment. Oh, I'm sorry.
There's one in Tahoe.
Oh,
Hello.
hello there.
Am I coming through?
Yeah. We can hear.
Excellent. My name is Chris Egger, and I'm a resident of Tahoe City. First, I'd like to acknowledge an apparent consensus among citizens, community leaders, and elected officials, among others, recognizing the need to address housing issues in the North Lake Tahoe communities. Additionally, I'd like to commend you for taking action to do so. However, I'm concerned that the approach the county is currently taking with respect to directly supporting housing development through subsidies is exemplified by your recent action authorizing pursuit of a purchase agreement for the Nahas property in Dollar Hill, Tahoe City, may be a disservice to the community, primarily owing to the fact that it may not be the best approach to addressing housing issues. That is, setting aside regulatory and other actions the county may consider taking, as indicated, for example, in the Draft Housing Strategy and Development Plan, insofar as the county is going to provide financial backing for housing, which, mind you, is another way of saying that the county is going to distribute public funds to a private developer. The process consisting of acquiring a property, issuing an RFP, and coming to terms with the developer may result in the addition of less housing than could be accomplished with the same amount of money through another process or allocation mechanism. For example, the recently announced public funding of the Meadowview Place workforce housing amounted to, by my calculations, $187,000 per unit. I can assure you that this is not getting the most bang for your buck. Furthermore, it appears to me, based on a brief exchange with Deputy CEO Jennifer Merchant at last week's NTRAC, that other options have not even been considered. I believe there are multiple alternatives worth exploring, including Pagovian subsidies and market-based mechanisms for the allocation of subsidies, which, mind you, would also help establish a relatively incontrovertible basis for setting in lieu fees. I hope to share these ideas in detail with you in writing in the coming weeks. I implore you to take a step back and evaluate the process you're engaged in as well as alternatives. Pursuing anything less than the most optimal and efficient approach is a waste of precious resources and a disservice to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I want to thank the board for their indulgence as I extended the time for public comment to make sure everybody was heard. We're going to now close public comment and now move to board member reports. Any reports from board members? County executive reports.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch base on one item. Between this meeting, we had a sewer leak that took place at Mount Vernon Road, just east of the intersection with the Jogger Road.
Jurger Road.
Close enough. And I wanted to just touch base and give you a quick update on that project and kind of where it's at. This was a road closure that actually took place, and I wanted to just give recognition to our road staff. They were excellent. They identified that, brought it to the attention of the City of Lincoln and Stantec, who's actually handling the work with their wastewater treatment facility. At the end of the day, there's a failure of a coupler that took place. This was a 4-day closure from July 26th through July 30th. So this went through the weekend. In concert with Stantec and then Granite Construction working on the redoing of that road once the leak had been fixed. The decommissioning of our existing ponds, we use those for emergency sewer leakage. We worked on the fix to that. So the City of Lincoln was pretty focused on getting this done, and so they got their resources out in a timely manner. Our messaging took place, our communication staff and PIO were exceptional in notifying residents about that closure. So I just wanted to share that with you. The funding for this fix actually is taking place at the City of Lincoln. Their wastewater treatment operation is actually handling that fix. So I think we jumped on that, but just because between our last meeting on the 24th and this one on the 14th, I wanted to kind of give you an update on that since that was pretty significant.
Thank you, and I want to thank Facilities Services staff, Bill Zimmerman, and I think Dave Atkinson was out there the whole time this was going on and kept us abreast of what was going on. So I want to just give a shout out to Bill's staff and Dave Atkinson and Kevin Bell in particular. All right, thank you. Supervisor Euler.
Yes, just quickly, Mr. Chairman, my colleagues will recall that after our last board meeting, after public comment, we had a brief conversation about the status of the litigation that was brought against the county on the Tree Lake Village the Tree Lake Village project that was addressed earlier by two commenters. I committed to those individuals and my colleagues that I was going to go meet with the project owners to talk about possible modifications to operations of the facility that might result in reduced impacts in the neighborhood. I did have that meeting. Very productive hour and a half, came away with a long list of things that they were willing to talk with the neighbors about. Unfortunately, subsequent to that, the two gentlemen who were here and commented earlier filed another lawsuit, and they showed up to make claims of criminal activity. So I think, unfortunately, it's safe to say that the willingness of the project applicant to cooperate with those folks has evaporated, and I guess litigation takes the place of negotiation.
Thank you, Supervisor Euler. It's my great honor to approve a commendation honoring Donna Howell on her award from the Conference of California Historical Societies for her dedication to the preservation and promotion of Placer County history. I have a nice commendation here that I would like to read, and then I'll bring it down and present it to you. and we'll have a photo taken. Whereas on June 23rd, 2018, Donna Howell was recognized by the Conference of California Historical Societies for her commitment to preserving and sharing Placer County's history. Donna has been an invaluable proponent of Placer County's rich history for more than 4 decades, volunteering more than 15,000 hours of service to this community. Whereas, over the past 25 years, Donna has volunteered considerable time and talent to the efforts of the Placer County Historical Society and Placer County Historical Foundation in order to ensure that Placer County's history is documented and accessible for all. And whereas Donna has authored or contributed to a number of books on Placer County history, including a self-guided walking tour to historic Auburn, Bowman, and Romantic Tahoe, as well as serving as editor and co-editor of multiple publications, including the Placer County Historical Society's newsletter and the Foundations of Placer County Horticulture. And whereas, in addition to her writing and editing skills, Donna has volunteered her time to manage the Placer County Museum Gift Shop and Visitor Center, and has served in key positions in the Placer County Historical Society, including treasurer, president of the board of directors, and chair of the book committee. And whereas Donna's commitment to Placer County history extends into the community, with her serving on the Auburn Historic Design Review Committee and the Mountain Quarries Railroad 100-year Anniversary Committee, and even into her own home, which she has single-handedly worked to have listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Now, therefore, let it be known that the above commendation was duly passed by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Placer on behalf of the citizens of Placer County, and hereby commends Donna Howell for decades of dedicated service to preserving Placer County's rich history. I'll bring this down to you, but I want to make a comment. Having my family's been here on my mother's side since 1853 and my father's side since 1864. And so our family is truly a part of Placer County's history. I don't know if there's any other comments, but I'll bring this down and we will have a photo.
Oh, thank you.
I don't have much to work with there. So. And then Michael Otten, who couldn't be here today, wanted us to present you with these flowers.
Oh, how nice.
And so they're for you to take. Now, would you like to say a few words?
No, just thank you.
Okay.
It's nice to be recognized.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your tireless work. Oh, yes, sir.
I'm here to speak.
Oh, okay.
But I got to wait till you call for public.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
I should have been at the El Dorado County Board of Supervisors today. They have a lot of activities happening, a lot of important things. I realize you're running late, but I do want to acknowledge you have a special person here. I am Chris Payne from the Conference of California Historical Societies. We had an awards luncheon on June 23rd of this year, and obviously she's an award recipient.
Right.
I think your condemnation or your proclamation related to her is obviously to the point. That's my comments. She's special. Thank you.
Well, thank you for choosing Placer County Board of Supervisors today.
Thank you.
All right. And now we'll move to our 9-10 tied items. Approving a commendation recognizing Sandy Bozo. Is that how you say it? Bozo. For more than 31 years of service to the citizens of Placer County. Would you come forward? I know that's you. And I'm going to read this nice proclamation. It's a commendation, excuse me. Whereas Sandy has been a creative, conscientious, and devoted employee of the Placer County Auditor Controller's Office for more than 31 years and is deserving of special recognition for her loyal service. And whereas Sandy began her employment in Placer County in May of 1987 as a typist clerk 2, extra help in the Auditor Control's Office. In October of that year, she transitioned into a permanent full-time employee, and whereas Sandy repeatedly promoted over her career with the Placer County Auditor Controller's Office, rising through the account clerk, accountant auditor classifications, before becoming the administration and fiscal operations manager, and finally managing account auditor of the financial reporting and internal audit divisions, which he still manages to this day. That's a mouthful, let me just tell you. Whereas Sandy's career in the Auditor Controller's Office, she was instrumental in the implementation of AB 2544, which changed trial court funding, and SB 1732 for the transfer of court facilities to the state. She was also tasked with compiling the county-wide cost allocation plan and the comprehensive annual financial report. And whereas Sandy has never wavered in her attempts to support staff and to improve all aspects of the Auditor Controller's Office. In 2006, she was nominated by staff for the Employee Recognition Award in the leadership category. Whereas Sandy has demonstrated her relentless dedication to serving the employees and the citizens of Placer County. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Placer, on behalf of the citizens of Placer County, acknowledge with great appreciation Sandy for her dedicated service and wishes her a long and enjoyable retirement. And I will bring this down.
I know. Amazing, right?
Let's stand. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
want to say a few words?
I do.
All right.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning again.
Thank you for having me here today.
You bet. Thanks for being here.
First of all, I just want to thank all of the auditor controller staff that I've worked with over the past 31 years. I'm not going to get emotional.
That's all right.
Although there's been a lot of changes over the years, the one thing that remains the same is the family-like culture that's in that office that makes it such a wonderful place to go to every day. I want to thank everybody for all the opportunities I've had to learn so much about local government and to work with so many amazing people throughout the whole county organization. It's just been a pleasure. So with that being said, thanks to everybody for all the memories, and it's time to travel.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm going to get emotional after that. I'm Nicole Howard, Assistant Auditor Controller, pinch hitting for Andy Sisk, who couldn't be here this morning. As you heard, Sandy spent her entire career in our office. She leaves huge shoes to fill. As you know, she's worked in every division. She has all the historical knowledge. When we get these odd requests from the 80s and 90s, we turn to Sandy, and now she's going to be leaving us, so we're going to have to dig through those archives and figure it out, I guess, without her memory banks. She is one of those employees, you give her a task, she turns it around quickly. She's always pleasant, helpful, just very approachable. Our staff can come to her about anything, and we're really going to miss her. But I know after 31 years, I've been giving her a hard time all year. It's time for her to take the next step and enjoy her retirement, but we wish her the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Now we'll move to our 9:15 timed item under the Agricultural Department. Presentation of 2017 Agriculture Crop Report and Update from Placer Grown. Morning, sir.
Good morning. Josh Hunsinger, Placer County Agricultural Commissioner. And with me today is Carol Arnold, the CEO of the Placer Grown organization, who is contracted with the county to conduct our agricultural marketing program. I'd like to first start off with our 2017 crop report. Happy I'll have to get the gentleman previously a copy of the new one that just came out. So this is the 2017 report that should be in your packets. It's got some stuff going on that I wanted to highlight for you today. For the first time in quite a number of years, cattle and calves are our number one agricultural commodity, supplanting rice.
Wow.
There's kind of some interesting dynamics going on there. As you recall, last year had a very, very wet spring, and so a lot of rice was prevented from being planted by the wet weather we had in the spring. Another dynamic that was going on at that same time is we've seen a large shift from rice being converted over into almond and walnut orchards. So we've had about 4,000 acres of new walnut and almond orchards planted in the county. However, those orchards take a number of years to come online and start bearing. So the almonds, we have almost no commercial almond production to speak of, while we have 2,000 acres of almonds planted in the county. They're just not online yet. Same thing with walnuts. Only about 50% of our acreage is online so far. So our walnut number for last year was around $4.5 million. I did some rough numbers in approximately 5 years when all those orchards are up and bearing. Between the two, that'll be about $28 million of production using a 2017 value. Really, I expect the crop report to grow significantly in the future when we have a normal rice year, plus all these new nut trees coming online. I think it'll be a really significant increase over the next 5 years in that crop report. With just kind of 2017's kind of got some funky dynamics going on there with the weather, which is exactly what farming is. Kind of, you're along for the ride with Mother Nature, certainly. Some other things just to highlight in there, I'm pleased to report that some of the smaller foothill commodities are all showing really increasing trends. Mandarins, vegetables, wine grapes, those types of things are all on an uptick, both in value and in acreage. People are excited about farming in Placer County, maybe even if it's just on a small scale. We're seeing a lot of excitement, a lot of interest from new farmers and people wanting to farm here in Placer County. So I think it's really positive overall. I'll pause here if you have any questions on the crop report before I turn it over to Carol for our Placer Grown update for the year.
Josh, could you let me know why the shift from rice to almonds and walnuts? Was that more of a financial decision, or?
Yeah, so that's following a statewide trend. We're seeing, the beauty about nuts is that they have a worldwide appeal. They really, there's every culture on earth basically, is used to having nuts as part of their diet, and so both the almond and walnut industries have been really successful in breaking into, our California industries have broken into those international markets really well, and so there's a statewide, California-wide trend to plant more nut tree orchards, and we're seeing that here in Placer County as well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments from board members?
All right.
Seeing none.
Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to Carol, who is going to give you just a few brief comments, and then we've prepared a video to show some of the highlights of our agricultural marketing year as well.
Thank you, Josh. Hi, Carol.
Hi, thanks, Josh. So I just have a couple of things before we show you the video. One of the things that we have discovered this year is that we need to be really clear about our mission and our deliverables. And what that comes down to, and I think what the Board of Soups is looking for when they entrust us with the ag marketing budget, is how does this affect sales? Because marketing without sales isn't anything. So we're working on quantifying, increases. It's difficult in farming because farmers are notoriously private, and we don't have the background of data gathering that we need. So that's one of our goals for next year, is to be able to come back to you next year and say, we have 4 farms that are 5 years old, we have 10 farms that are 10 years old, we have this many farms that are grossing this much money, you know, and so we can quantify for you. That being said, we have a real positive trend going on. I think for the first time in 4 years, I can come to you all and say things are going really well. I think that one of the things that's very key here is that people are working well together. The farmers are working well together. The farmers are working well in their own enterprises, layered enterprises. You now see a farm that raises vegetables. We have one farm right now that's raising vegetables, has an Airbnb, and they're selling all the flowers that they have to Sacramento Food Co-op that they can raise, enough that they could afford to buy a van, which is really key. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but buying a van to just deliver flowers for our scale of agriculture is huge. So our farmers are doing well. And also what you'll see in our infographic is that we have increasing slowly distribution outlets. Tahoe Food Hub, Produce Express is now working with our farmers. That's new. That's really new for us. There's a lot more that can be said about this. We'll watch the video, and you can look at the infographic and ask me if you have any. Ask me questions if you have any. But I want to really address something key, which I think is unique to Placer County, and that's that your agricultural community works really well together. Our growers know Josh, the Ag Commissioner, by name. They know that they can call him. They know that they can call the Department of Agriculture and talk to Daryl Matani or Corey and ask them questions. We have cooperative extension, active and held in very wide regard, statewide if not nationally. Cindy Fake and Dan Macon. We have Elisa over at RCD. We have Laura at the Farm Bureau. And we have strong, like the PCVA. We have the Mountain Mandarin growers. And all these groups are working together. And I think that that's where you're seeing this sea change of forward movement. So I want to just give a shout out to everybody in Placer Ag who are really modeling working together. So on to the video.
Let me just make a comment. I drive a lot of the rural roads because I like to stay off Highway 49. But I've noticed it's even more so. There's more farm stands or little stands there in their driveway or somewhere. I've seen about 4 of them this year for some reason. That it's a good trend. It's nice to be able to see that type of growth in people actually working the land.
I went into a farm stand last weekend, and we tend to say, oh, these guys are just small and they're just selling a few tomatoes. I did some rough calculations, and these folks are making some bank.
Good.
I could by the number of pounds they had on the table, the number of weeks they were going to be producing.
Yeah.
It was like, holy smokes. And that's where we're seeing a huge change.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
Good work.
Hi, I'm Carol Arnold. I'm the CEO of Placer Grown, and we have some exciting updates for you.
I've been coming to the Placer Grown Farmers Markets for 20 years, and the most exciting thing that's happened in the last couple of years is this upsurge of young farmers. I think it's so amazing to see them come in and introduce new items and just be farmers. And the happiest thing for me is to be part of the board of Placer Grown.
Since last year, we have added 10 new farms and 2 new farm-to-tap breweries, bringing our total to 3, and continue to support our 21 existing local wineries. Placer County Planning Department reports significant interest from people hoping to open new wineries.
We love Placer Grown because it allows us to put in more hours actually farming, opposed to doing all the marketing and everything else that goes along with owning a farm.
Direct-to-customer sales continue to be the main outlet for our small farmers and ranchers. In addition to 10 certified farmers markets, we are seeing increasing numbers of successful farm stands, as well as continued popularity for our 3 community-supported agricultural subscription services. What may be most exciting is that placer-grown produce is becoming more popular than ever, with respected and up-and-coming chefs from Sacramento to Tahoe. The Tahoe Food Hub, which supplies fresh local produce to the Tahoe Basin, is currently supported by 17 of our local placer-grown farms. Overall, the trend we are seeing is that placer-grown produce is becoming sought after beyond the traditional on-farm and certified farmers market outlets.
Placer grown has always been an asset for us, we think. We do things like the farm and barn tour, and I mean that's been a real popular thing for us. I mean, we probably had 400 people come through the gate that day, and it was blowing. I mean, it was trying to blow our awnings away and everything, and we still had a great turnout, almost a record turnout. So, it kind of shows us that we're doing something right.
One of the main drivers behind our successful social media program has been the popularity of placer-grown produced events, including the sold-out crop-to-tabletop dinner at Foothill Roots Farm, the Farm and Barn Tour, which had stops at 15 placer-grown farms and an estimated attendance of 4,500 people, the sold-out Sunday Supper live fire barbecue at Twin Peaks Orchards, and a dinner featuring renowned chef and author Diane Kennedy at Nick's Tacos in Roseville, with many honored guests, including the Consul General of Mexico in Sacramento.
Placer County is one of the most accessible and vibrant agriculture communities in all of California. We have great festivals that attract thousands and thousands of visitors from all over the state. They come here, they get to see what we offer, what we grow, what we brew, and when they do, they inevitably want to come back because this is the authentic life that people are really looking for in their travel experiences these days.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation, and we look forward to sharing more with you in the future.
Thanks, Carol. That was very well done. Any closing comments?
Yeah, no, that concludes our presentation. Thank you very much for receiving it today.
Well, thank you for all the work you do. It's a good Placer Grown's a good program. It's really worked well. So we just want to thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Now we will move to our 925. We're catching up here. Public Works and Facilities, South Placer Wastewater Authority Regional Sewer Connection Fee increased. This will be a public hearing. We'll go ahead and present.
Good morning, Chairman Holmes and members of the board. My name is Robin Mahoney. I'm Senior Civil Engineer with Environmental Engineering of Department of Public Works and Facilities. I'm here today to request that your board conduct a public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending Placer County Code to increase sewer connection fees for the Granite Bay, Horseshoe Bar, Sunset, and Dry Creek Sewer District areas from $9,102 to $9,322 to reflect increases in the regional component of the sewer connection fees. Department of Public Works and Facilities is also requesting that your board make a finding that the higher connection fees are derived directly from the cost of providing service. For background, wastewater collected in sewer maintenance districts 2 and 3 and county service areas 28, zones 2A3 and zone 173 is conveyed to the City of Roseville's wastewater treatment plants. Pursuant to our agreements with the South Placer Wastewater Authority, connection fees from sewer districts utilizing these wastewater treatment plants include a regional component that is used by the SPWA to fund future wastewater treatment plant expansions. The current connection fee in these districts and CSAs is $9,102 per equivalent dwelling unit, which includes a $7,634 regional component and a $1,468 local component. The local component is not increasing. We're just passing through the increase in the regional component. Excuse me. On July 1st of this year, the SPWA increased regional connection fee to $7,854 per equivalent dwelling unit. In order to accommodate for this increase, Staff recommends your board increase the connection fee by $220 or 2.42% to $9,322 in the affected districts. The requested annual increase is based upon the construction cost index of the Engineering News Record as specified by the Roseville Municipal Code and consistent with our SPWA agreements. In order to adjust these fees as described, staff is requesting that your board conduct a public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending Section 1312.350 of Placer County Code to increase the sewer connection fees for SMD2, SMD3, CSA 28 Zone 2A3, and CSA 28 Zone 173 from $9,102 to $9,322 to reflect increases in the regional component approved by the SPWA, and requesting that your board make a finding pursuant to Section 21080B8 of the Public Resource Code that the higher connection fees are derived directly from the cost of providing service and are therefore exempt from environmental review. With that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions your board may have.
Before I open the public hearing, is there any questions from board members? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Does anyone from the audience wish to address the board on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for action.
I move approval on the increase and the associated findings.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 4A, 1 and 2. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. Thank you, Robin. Thank you for your patience. Now we'll move to our 9:30 timed item. Treasurer Tax Collector, CMFA Bold Program and OCSCDA SKIP Program. Ms. Windishausen.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, County Council, County Executive. I have with me today Susan Goodwin from Goodwin Consulting and Dennis McGuire from Piper Jaffray. They're part of the BOLD team and here to answer questions. As well, I would like to mention that Jeff Short is here from BIA, and he may want to speak to this item today. So the action before you today is to receive a presentation about the BOLD program and then consider adopting a resolution amending the Bond Screening Committee rules and procedures to adopt the BOLD program and discontinue further participation in the California Statewide Communities Development Authority SKIP program. And I want to note that this meeting has been noticed for public hearing, so you will need to open public hearing when you're ready to take comments. So, who is CMFA? CMFA is a California Municipal Financing Authority. It's been around for about 14 years. They do a variety of financings. They have experience doing financings, and most recently they have developed the BOLD program, which stands for Bond Opportunities for Land Development. It offers a cost-effective and efficient alternative to the issuance of Community Facilities District bonds for both fees and public improvements. And while they do the issuance and they are the issuer, they work hand in glove with local agencies, cities, and counties to make sure that their needs, priorities, and goals are met. So what are the benefits for Placer County? And I'm going to talk about the benefits for the county, the benefits for developers, and ultimately also benefits for property owners. But first and foremost, because CMFA is the issuer, the financial risk associated with issuing land development bonds is shifted to CMFA as the issuer, which really then narrows the county's perspective on what they're concerned about in these deals when we don't have to worry about analyzing and mitigating those risks. I know there are some who will tell you that there's no risk to the county to do land development bonds, but we know from our neighboring county, Nevada County, and the city of Lathrop, has just spent 12 years and several $1 million to clean up a failed CFD, and Nevada County just finished after 20 years cleaning up one. So that's a really important factor for the county. Financial benefits include low cost. The average cost of issuance for a BOLD program bond is about 6% total cost, and that means more more bond proceeds and more tax dollars go to pay for infrastructure instead of fees for underwriters in particular. CFDs have and the BOLD program is based on a CFD platform. They don't have a finding of direct benefit, and I'm going to talk more about direct benefit versus general benefit. CFDs only require a general benefit, and that means that a wider range of fees and facilities can be financed, including school fees and regional project fees. So as a part of a CFD that is formed for Placer County to finance fees and or infrastructure, the developer can also pay their school fees through the same CFD. It also frees county staff time to focus on other aspects of processing land development projects, helping us to be quicker and more responsive. The county's limited involvement ensures that priorities are met. So we're only involved where it's very critical. Things like reviewing the acquisition agreement just to make sure that it's agrees with what we've agreed to in the development agreement. So we'll take a narrower perspective on the acquisition agreement and also on the rate and method of apportionment. The BOLD program can be used to finance large, complex projects with multiple phases and series of bond issues, and it can also be used to finance fees on small projects. This is unlike assessment districts. It eliminates, the program will eliminate ongoing annual bond administration for any bond that the issues. That includes tax levy preparation, arbitrage rebate calculations, continuing disclosure, and debt servicing, which take a considerable amount of time for each bond issue. The BOLD team consists of existing county consultants who have a proven track record with the county and are familiar with the county and its land development projects. So Susan is currently on contract. The other member of the team that is not here is Jones Hall, Dave Fama from Jones Hall. Jones Hall is currently on contract for several of our land development projects, and Piper Jaffrey is part of our qualified list of underwriters. BOLD allows the county's independent registered municipal advisor, which is a Securities and Exchange designated title, if you will, to be incorporated into the financing process. A portion, and then also with a BOLD program, a portion of the issuance fee is donated back to member communities to further goals on issues such as affordable housing and open space. So they have, even in spite of the fact that they have lower fees, they donate back to their member communities. The benefit for developers is that it's lower financing costs mean more money to pay for fees and reimburse infrastructure, and also allow for pay-go, which can increase the proceeds derived from the taxes that are levied 20 to 50%. And I have a slide on that to show that more specifically. The other thing that developers have indicated to us that they really like about this program is that they can form the CFD now, and then bonds can be issued later. Special taxes can be liened on a rolling basis without waiting for other pool participants or application deadlines. There's no restrictive benefit analysis limiting the types of fees or facilities. Again, with an assessment district, there has to be a finding of direct benefit, and an engineer has to assign the financial benefit to each property, and the assessment cannot exceed that financial benefit. It can be used to pay for fees and infrastructure to multiple jurisdictions, as I mentioned before, including things such as school fees. Developer reimbursement can be done on a progress payment basis. This is another thing that the developers have been asking for, and quite frankly that the county has struggled a little bit with, and I think there's a path forward here related to progress payments. The SKIP program, in July of 2016, the county amended the Bond Screening Committee rules to authorize the use of the SKIP program, which is an assessment district financing to finance developer fees. The assessment districts require a finding of direct benefit, and so therefore it limits the fees that can be financed through that program and the facilities that can be financed through that program. Assessment districts have experienced a number of legal challenges over the last several years. There have been 5 lawsuits that have either set aside the assessment or reduced the assessment. So it is the CFDs or Mello-Roos have not experienced those legal challenges. So the assessment district format is a little more legally fragile, if you will. The SCIP program fees average about 8%, with underwriting fees being about twice the current market rates. Since July of 2016, 4 applications have been submitted to the county for the SCIP program. 2 applications have been funded. 2, which were submitted about 15 months ago, have yet to be funded, and they're not related to SCIP, but due to project issues. For example, one is in litigation. And then of the 2 funded, one of the financings requires some remedial action. I want to make it clear that I've had a number of conversations with SCIP's bond counsel, and nothing impedes the county's ability to work with SCIP to administer the bonds or to take the necessary remedial action either now or in the future by an action to replace the SCIP program with the BOLD program. And then any existing applications, the 2 that have yet to be funded, would not be affected. They can proceed on through. So this is a chart that is just a side-by-side comparison of the BOLD program and the SCIP program. I've mentioned almost everything on here, so I won't belabor it, but it just gives you a visual comparison. I do want to go over some numbers, and I'm sorry, with tables, sometimes numbers are small, but it is a comparison of the SCIP and the BOLD program. Let's see if I can get this little dot to work here. So what this assumes is that the taxes per year are $2,000 on the affected parcel. And from the $2,000, then the amount of proceeds from that $2,000 are derived here from the SCIP program and the BOLD program. And the difference is that if you don't escalate that $2,000 at all, which you cannot put an escalator on an assessment district, then here are the proceeds from that $10,000, and they're strictly bond proceeds. So there's no opportunity for pay-go, which again is another item that developers are requesting, and the county has developed some policies around that. With the BOLD program, you can get pay-go, and that increases the amount that you can, the total amount that you can derive from that $2,000, depending upon whether you escalate the $2,000 2% a year or hold it flat, between 20 and 50% from compared to the SCIP program. So what that means is that for the tax burden, there's more bang for the buck, if you will. So the bond screening committee reviewed the BOLD program and has a recommendation for the board. Representatives of the development community requested the county to consider the BOLD program, and one of them requested that we move rapidly because they wanted to utilize the program right away. So on August 2nd, the Bond Screening Committee reviewed and discussed information on the BOLD program and related amendments to the Bond Screening Committee rules and procedures, including replacement of the SCIP program with the BOLD program. 4 representatives, the developers, attended the meeting. They asked questions. I think their questions were very robust, and we had I think, a productive conversation. At the end of the meeting, the Bond Screening Committee voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to amend the Bond Screening Committee rules and procedures and replace the SCIP program with the BOLD program. Now, the unanimous recommendation again, as I said, of the Bond Screening Committee is to replace the SCIP program with the BOLD program. Outsourcing to a single entity, which outperforms other alternatives, is a cost-effective and efficient means to streamline the land development, financing of fees and infrastructure improvements, and it alleviates staff time to focus on other aspects of processing land development. I want to make clear that basically anything that you can do with an assessment district, you can do with a CFD. The BOLD program is more cost effective for the county, developers, and ultimately the residents who will pay the tax. So they get 20 to 50% more fees and infrastructure for the same tax burden, or conversely, for the amount that you need to spend, lower tax. It can be used to finance a wider range of fees and infrastructure improvements. It's operated by a proven team of professionals. Again, they have experience with the county specifically, and they also have the provision that they give back to local programs. Now, final considerations. The board does need to hold a public hearing. And I do want to let you know that late information received from North State Building Industry Association requesting the county to proceed with the BOLD adoption and delay eliminating future participation in the SKIP program. And I've had several conversations with Jeff Short over the last couple of days, and I think BIA very, very kindly offered to a lot of the concern, from what I gathered, and of course Jeff can speak for BIA and for himself, but is that the developers want more time to learn about the BOLD program. And so they suggested hosting a informational program. And so, of course, we're very willing to do that. So the board may elect to approve replacement of the SKIP program with the BOLD program as recommended by the Bond Screening Committee, or you can approve the BOLD program and delay eliminating future participation in the SKIP program, or you can continue the entire item to a future date if you would like. And we're prepared to respond at the pleasure of the board. So with that, I'd like to take any questions that you may have, and then do remind you that it's a public hearing.
Okay. Supervisor Grand, you have your light on?
Yeah, you know, I pretty much agree with everything that you said but one. And that is that the developers didn't request this. They were forced into it. They were forced into it because staff did not want to create the CFD. And I think that sends a bad message to to the development community when we make commitments that we're going to get our developers certain documents and it doesn't happen. And, you know, while I agree that this might be a good option, let's be honest about how this came off.
Can you be specific about what staff didn't want to form the CFD?
Well, our treasurer tax collector.
Oh, I don't think that's true. I've spent many, many hours on this, Jack. Many hours. I think that you need to take a really hard look at the capacity that we have, and that's one of the reasons, is the capacity to do these deals right now is deficient. It's an issue that I've been raising for several years.
Mm-hmm. And I agree 100%. But at the essence, this is a policy decision. And the policy decision should have been made here, not someplace else. That's all I'm saying. I do agree.
It is here for you now, Jack.
It is here now. But it wasn't in the beginning.
Did you want to see
so
program
I'm going to leave it at that.
Available.
I'm going to leave it at that and continue on down this road.
I just want to add that due diligence before considering any bond issue or asking the board to issue bonds is a function of staff, and it's an important function of staff.
I understand that.
Any other board comments? Alrighty, this is a public hearing. I'll open up the public hearing and take public comment. Good morning, Mr. Merleau.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Marcus LaDuca, 3200 Douglas Boulevard. First, I'd like to apologize for not being able to reach out beforehand. I just found out about this yesterday afternoon and read the staff report last night. I'd like to applaud your staff, particularly the Treasurer Tax Collector, for bringing forward the BOLD program as another tool in your economic development toolkit. Any additional help that the development community can get in terms of trying to put financing packages together to move projects forward is very welcome. I think this program, particularly for the large specific plan areas, multi-phase, it's going to take place over a long period of time with a lot of infrastructure involved up front. This, again, is a great tool to be able to move forward with. I would ask for you not to get rid of the SKIP program, however. As the person who brought the first SKIP project forward here in Placer County and has worked with industry throughout the region in terms of trying to get that adopted for some projects that aren't large multi-phase projects, particularly single site commercial, non-residential projects. SCIP works very well. I've done this in various communities with SCIP. The industry has worked. BIA has worked a lot with various jurisdictions to get it adopted. We ask that you leave that tool in the toolkit as opposed to eliminating it. But we do ask that you move forward today with the BOLD program and implement that with all due haste to be able to provide that opportunity for folks in projects throughout the county. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, quickly, Mr. LaDuca, just curious of your thoughts because you've used the SCIP program. Pardon me. Appropriate utilization of SCIP program, the type of project that it works well for versus the BOLD program. What are your thoughts in terms of? It wasn't. I'm trying to think. Did the
Country
project
House.
at Barton and Douglas
Correct.
use the SCIP program, right? And
Right.
They, as a matter of fact, Mr. Tattersall was very interested in the board moving that forward in order to help that project be delivered. And now it's doing great things. And so, what are the kinds of things where SCIP is appropriate versus BOLD?
Well, again, typical single-site projects that I've experienced, and I've done them in multiple cities now and multiple counties that aren't looking at, for example, pay-as-you-go, which is the Treasurer Tax Collector mentioned, can be a very effective tool in terms of getting the most bang for the buck on large multi-phase projects.
Larger, yeah.
Single-site projects that typically have just infrastructure immediately adjacent that they're providing, development fees that they're providing, which are typically the largest ones are the county fees and other participating jurisdictions. Those have worked very well. Again, we were the pioneers, so the first guy through gets all the arrows, and it's a learning curve for everyone, and so those aren't fun, as I'm sure the staff will tell you. But as you implement those, single subdivisions sometimes can be helped by that, that don't have multi-phase. It's just a single project coming through that we found has been very effective. I think from what I've read of the BOLD program for the large multi-phase projects that have substantial upfront infrastructure, this looks like a very effective and very good tool to adopt. And so that's why I'm saying please adopt this and move forward, but let's not get rid of SCIP for those opportunities that might be there for projects to use that.
Great, thanks, Marcus.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Short.
Good morning, Chair Holmes and members of the Board of Supervisors. I'm Jeff Short, representing the North State Building Industry Association. First, I do want to thank Treasurer Tax Collector Windishausen for her work in bringing the BOLD program to Placer County. This is an incredibly important program for our members, and we are happy to see it offered in Placer. I also want to thank her for her work in protecting those developers who are already going through the SCIP program. Been working with her early, late, over the weekend to make sure that those projects were not harmed. So thank you so much for your hard work on that aspect. Ultimately, however, I also must ask that you do not remove the ability to apply for the SCIP program at this time. First, we believe a little competition may be healthy for both programs and ultimately for development in the county. More pressing to our membership, however, is the lack of education and awareness around the BOLD program. No one needs to tell you how long it can take for projects to get off the ground, and some pending projects have been planning for and depending on that SCIP program, and they're not comfortable making a shift to a new program without fully understanding the differences and potential benefits. So for that reason, we ask that the discontinuation of the SCIP program in Placer County be at least delayed until more education and outreach can be done for BOLD in the builder and developer community. As I had mentioned to Treasurer Tax Collector Windishausen, and as we have done previously for the SCIP program, we at the BIA are more than happy to help facilitate that education with our office, with our time, whatever is needed. And just to be absolutely clear, we recognize the importance in authorizing the BOLD program today, and we don't want to do anything that could hinder that authorization. We are simply asking that both programs be allowed to exist side by side within the county, and if one program is to be chosen over the other, to please at least allow enough time for developers to plan for and understand that choice. So thank you again, Treasurer Windishausen and county staff, for your hard work this last week, and thank you, supervisors, for your time and consideration of this matter.
Thank you, sir. Morning, Mr. Tarrant.
Supervisor Holmes, Members of the board, Tim Tarrant.
I'm just going to say, if you're winning, don't
I'm not gonna
don't
blow
make
it.
it any longer
I'm
than
not
it
gonna
needs
blow
to
it.
be.
I'm not going to blow it. Tim Tarrant, representing Placer Vineyards Development Group, and I'm not going to speak to Skip. How about that? I'm going to just say we are very excited about the BOLD program. We very much appreciate your staff, your consultant team bringing it before you today. As all of you know, we've been at this for a long time, trying to get to where we are today, and we are prepared to file an application with BOLD tomorrow if you act to approve your participation in the BOLD program today. So that's our request. Whatever you do, please do not delay action on the BOLD program. We very much would like to move forward right away. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board on this item? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing. Bring it back for further discussion.
Just had just a clarification, Supervisor Duran. Are we looking to approve the program but also delay the eliminating the skip? Is that what you're? Thank you. Sorry.
At a later date, if the board decides to revisit this and discontinue with Skip, then I think that's fine. I don't, we've had enough brain damage on this for the time being, so let's just leave it as it is. So
yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with keeping both programs going. If Skip at some point proves to be somehow a liability to the county, we revisit it at that point. I'm comfortable with that, but I'm
agreed
moving with both. So that's my second to Supervisor Duran's motion.
Supervisor Wargate.
If I just make a couple of comments or a comment, actually. So I'm good with that. As we go forward, I want to understand better before we make a final decision if we do on skip as it relates to particularly the attributes as to where it may be a program that's a better fit or not. So Marcus, you had some comments, and Tim and Jeff, curious to hear where it would fit. I understand the risk component as it relates to the county currently, but that's just a request. I'd like to have that information as we move forward.
Okay, good. Mr. Cardin.
In view of the fact that the resolution with the packet and the changes to the bond screening committee bylaws are not actually consistent with the board's action, did we prepare a substitute resolution?
Yes. So everything was prepared based on the bond screening committee's recommendation, and we have been working to modify a resolution in anticipation of a different decision by the board, but the bond screening committee rules are incorporated as an exhibit to that resolution. So I think that's almost done, and what I would like to offer to the board is that we can come back later today and just whenever you can take us, if you will. I understand you have a 1 o'clock item, and maybe if we plan to be here, at that point it's simply an action, so maybe you can take us right before that 1 o'clock item. We'll be here a little early. Would that work?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to have the updated resolution before the board so we can take final action on it.
And so the motion and second has been made. We'll just hold off for decision until we hear.
Continue the matter until this afternoon at 1 o'clock?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll now move to our 9:45 timed item, Public Works and Facilities, annexation to Sewer District 2, Moyer property. Gentlemen.
Good morning, Chairman Holmes, members of the board. Andy Darrow with Public Works and Facilities. I'm here with Huey Nam. He's an associate civil engineer with us in environmental engineering, and he will be doing the presentation on this item today.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Chairman Holmes and members of the board. As Andy stated, my name is Huey Nam with Public Works and Facilities. We're here today to request your board conduct a public hearing and consider a resolution for the annexation of parcel 036-180051000 into Sewer Maintenance District 2 for sewer service. The property is located at 5860 Moss Lane, just west of Auburn Folsom Road and north of Cabot Stallman Road in Granite Bay, California. Charles and Ashley Moyer, owner of the 5-acre single-family residential parcel, request the board conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution for annexation of their parcel into Sewer Maintenance District 2. If approved, the applicant will be required to pay annexation fee in effect at the time they choose to make the payment. Currently, the required annexation fee for this parcel is $1,500. Staff supports this request. In order to move forward, we request your board conduct a public hearing and at the end of the public hearing, adopt a resolution in the staff report for the annexation of parcel 036-180-051-000 into Sewer Maintenance District 2. With that, I'm happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Any questions for staff before I open up the public hearing? Seeing none, this is the public hearing. Anyone in the audience wish to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for action. It's been moved and seconded to approve the item, item 6A, annexation to sewer district maintenance to Moyer property. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. Thank you so much, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Now we'll move to our, oh wait. That concludes our timed items until 1 o'clock. Now we'll move to our department items, and we will be talking about Health and Human Services, California Automated Consortium Eligibility System. And it's Amanda.
It is. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, members of the Board of Supervisors and Chair Holmes. I'm honored to present a request to you today. My name is Amanda Sharp, and I'm the new Human Services Director for Placer County Health and Human Services. I hope I have an opportunity to meet with all of you in the upcoming weeks and months, and I'd like to bring forward a request to present for approval of a resolution and memorandum of understanding, as well as authorization for the Director of Health and Human Services to sign the MOU and subsequent amendments consistent with subject matter and scope of work with risk management and county council concurrence, and this request has been reviewed by county council and risk management. Placer County is one of 18 counties using a computer system called CalWin. The action would allow Placer County to procure and manage certain shared computer services around the development of a uniform statewide system that will be used to automate welfare systems, eligibility determination, and ongoing case management, as well as employment services case management in the Department of Human Services. The MOU would take effect once all participating CalWin counties agree. Historically, there have been 3 automated welfare systems in the state. Right now, we're part of CalWin. The other consortia include LEADER, which is Los Angeles, and the C4 consortium, which includes multiple counties in the state. And the impetus from the federal government was to direct us to become one unified statewide system. We have until 2023 to do this. The current systems consortium need to combine into one system, not only in automation and technology, but also in governance structures and opportunity to contract and procure services that are necessary. In the meantime, in preparation for single system migration, representatives from all those consortia that I mentioned, as well as the California Welfare Directors Association, have formed a leadership team to collaborate on governance structure and identify procurement processes and issues that would smooth this process. And there's significant participation on the part of CalWin counties in this governance, in this consortia. The benefits and concerns brought forward is to let you know that I have been a part of the first phase of the process of moving the C4 counties with Los Angeles County in my prior experience in another county. All 58 counties will go through some change. There will be workflow issues that occur from resulting from one single system. But because Los Angeles and the C4 counties will be smoothing out the bumps, so to speak, in terms of the automation process and the collaboration, I do feel that we would miss out on some of the unanticipated hurdles in joining the Calwin counties into the third phase of the integration. In other words, I think that we will benefit from the other two groups going first. It's my understanding that the CalACES, which is what the new system will be called, is going to closely resemble the program that my prior county currently uses. For your information, current data shows that about 21 to 22% of Placer County persons are receiving services resulting from the use of these types of systems. So the most advantageous automation solutions are the best for the service to the community. It's expected that Placer County Community Human Services would retain the same share of cost spread under our current agreement as a member of the CalWINS consortium. The currently budgeted amount is indicated in the documents that you have, and it's $768,032. Placer's share of cost in the anticipated expenditures includes approximately 93% state and federal inputs with about 7% of county general fund match, and that would not change resulting from this. And part of the concerns that we have, the why, really is that the federal government provided a directive which was in part to reduce the overall state financial costs for managing and maintaining three distinct systems and standardize the functions statewide, which have some diversity in the three different systems. So this is a federal directive and it is a state imperative, and I'm in support of and recommend approval of this. I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Any questions, Supervisor Wygant?
A couple of questions. One, I guess, with the Placer model of HHS, which is a bit unique, do you see any potential compromises or concerns as it relates to how we would want our system compared to a one-size-fits-all statewide type of program?
That's an excellent question, and my answer to that would be is that in the long process of integration, the elements that are unique to each county are already being discussed. So just last week and the week prior to that, a group of folks from Placer County, from my department, were involved in a learning session about the unique things that each county has. For example, the General Assistance General Relief Program. That is, unique to our county. We decide how that's administered. Those requirements are being looked at, and as much flexibility built into the program so that all counties have that flexibility within their own regulatory requirements and their own service models is under consideration. I would also say that I'm very happy that the governance structure and the group that is being assembled with all of the counties has a very high number of CalWIN participants in it. Us being kind of in the third phase, the attitude is, of course, that we would contribute while the other two phases are happening rather than receive whatever changes are just automatically. We need to be a part of that participation to ensure that those things do happen, that we do have unique needs to meet, and that we have the flexibility in the program to meet those needs.
Thanks. Then connected potentially, but maybe not. So this is a federally driven request or initiative, but articulating that somehow the federal government is concerned about the cost to the state, but yet it sounds like they're referring to state cost savings, not federal cost savings. And so as a politician, that tweaks my perspective as it relates to the politics behind all of this. And is there, I guess what I'm really getting at is I've enjoyed seeing the Placer model of HHS develop and emerge and fit our county needs and give us the opportunity to be very entrepreneurial with the backdrop setting, be the federal and state government driven series of services. And every day at the board here, we are confronted with decisions that the state makes that we don't really care about. For example, the elimination of redevelopment agencies and the opportunities we have with that. So is there anything in there that I should be keeping an eye on? And I guess
I don't think so. That isn't my understanding. We're already using a program that has multiple counties, 18 counties in now. You've illuminated a very good point that there's a federal directive to do this to reduce costs because there's federal inputs in supporting all three separate systems to have three separate technology companies developing and upgrading constantly, so they would like to see one bill for that, so to speak. But as far as usefulness for the purposes of eligibility systems and healthcare automation, case management services within human services, a lot of that is within federal regulation and is limited to what the math says we can allow or cannot allow. So these computer systems, I don't think will have as much, will have a limitation on what our entrepreneurial or innovative approaches would be. It's more of standardizing how that would work. And there are some issues, if you can consider, I used to live in Shasta County, the fires that are occurring in Shasta County right now. There's individuals there who leave a county and need to seek refuge in another county temporarily or permanently. If their records can't transfer smoothly, that would be an element of going to one state system, that we would have a little bit better access between counties. There's upside and downside, and this is only the first part of the entire process. The first phase for CalWIN is to say, yes, we agree to be part of the governance structure. And then the negotiations begin on what elements go into the program, how we're all going to work together, how we procure, what contractors we work with. So there's a long road ahead of us till 2023. So I would say that those elements are very much on the minds of the CalWIN counties, but the systems that we use are fairly regimented, and I do believe it will provide us with a higher level of efficiency in the long run. There's a lot of transition whenever new technology comes through, but I do think it will be a benefit to the county.
Well, thanks, appreciate that, and I guess just if you could keep us surprised as to how we move forward and if there are any of those concerns that seem to materialize, I appreciate knowing about them.
Absolutely, and I think on the natural that will happen because once we've joined, then we have to join again. So there will be a natural progression of more information coming forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Any other questions from board members? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wish to address this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for approval. It's moved and seconded to approve the item, California Automated Consortium Eligibility System, Memorandum of Understanding of Shared Services. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item is moved.
Thank you,
Amanda. Now we'll move to item B, Community Mental Health Services Block Grant. Ms. Ellis, hello.
Good morning, Chair Holmes, board members, Mr. Leopold, Mr. Cardin. I'm Amy Ellis with the Director of the Adult System of Care. I'm presenting for both the adult and children's system of care related to our Community Mental Health Services Block Grant application for fiscal year 17-18. So this is a block grant that we bring to you every year for the past 20 years that has helped us serve children, adults, and older adults with serious mental illness for years to come. The Children's System of Care leverages this funding to deliver counseling, social skills training, and peer support to over 200 youth who were in or are at risk of entering the foster care system or from probation or child welfare services. Many of these youth would have otherwise required more intensive mental health care services and or psychiatric hospital-based care. The Adult System of Care, in collaboration with Alliance for Mentally Ill Housing, uses this funding to provide secure, stable housing with supportive services to adults and seniors with serious mental illness. In fiscal year 17-18, 280 adults were served using this funding. We are asking that your board take the following actions to authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to submit an application for the renewal of the Community Mental Health Services Block Grant for fiscal year 2018-19 in the amount of $754,846 to be able to accept those funds and to execute the application and any resulting agreements and documents as required. These federal revenues and their associated expenditures are included in the department's 18-19 budget. No matching county general funds are required. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from board members? I have a question. The Alliance for Mentally Ill Housing, is this the same organization that runs the apartment building that was built in Roosevelt and Okay.
Yes.
And you may not be able to answer this, but how many homes do they actually manage in Placer County? Do you have any idea?
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. Do you know, Jeff? About 5 or 6.
Oh, okay.
They do many for us. They're our main partner when it comes to actually purchasing and running supportive housing projects.
Yeah, I know they do a really good job for us, so I just wanted to shout them out. Seeing no other board member comments, is there anyone in the audience wish to address the board on this item? Seeing none, bring it back to the board for action. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 8B, Community Mental Health Services Block Grant. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now we'll move to item 9A, the sheriff, booking and jail services contract amendment with Nevada County. Good morning, Mr. Giacomini.
Good morning, Mr. Holmes. Chairman Holmes, members of the board, Mr. Leopold, Mr. Carden, Mark Giacomini, Placer County Sheriff's Office. I am here this morning with 2 items. The first item is the contract with the Nevada County Sheriff for jail and booking services. Specifically, I'm requesting your approval of an amendment to the contract between the Placer County Sheriff's Office and the Nevada County Sheriff's Office for booking and jail services, adjusting the amount to $446,598 for the term of July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. Funding for this agreement is included in our 18-19 budget, and there's no additional cost to the general fund. Happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Giacomini? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wish to address this item? Seeing none, we'll ask for action. Move approval. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 9A, booking and jail services contract amendment with Nevada County. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none. Thank you. We'll now move to item 9B, roadside maintenance agreement with the California Department of Transportation.
Fantastic. Again, Mark Jackman with the Placer County Sheriff's Office. Caltrans contract specifically, I'm asking your adoption of a resolution approving the cooperative agreement with the California Department of Transportation for roadside maintenance and litter removal services in the amount of $918,924 for the period of November 1st, 2018 through October 31st, 2021, and authorize the sheriff to execute the agreement from the period of authorize the sheriff to execute the agreement. Revenue in the amount of $193,678 is included in our 18-19 proposed budget. Subsequent years will be included in subsequent years' budgets. I do want to address the fact that the numbers may not look like they add up because of the construct of the construct of the agreements. This agreement, while it's 3 years with Caltrans, covers 4 fiscal years for us. So it'll be first part of 18-19, then 2 full years, and then the last part of 21-22. And any questions on that, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions from board members? Seeing none, anyone in the audience? And seeing none, we'll ask for approval. Move approval. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 9B, roadside maintenance agreement with California Department of Transportation. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. We'll now thank you, Mr. Giacomini.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And now we'll move to item 10, Human Resources Excess Insurance Authority Dental Program. Oh, it's Sherry. Hi, Sherry.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Sherry Chapman with Human Resources. Before you is a request to approve renewal of the county's agreement with the CSAC EIA for EIA dental program. It's an increased amount of approximately $56,700 for a total maximum amount of approximately $412,318 for a 1-year period. We are also seeking your approval to have the option to renew the county's agreement with CSAC EIA for an additional 3 additional 1-year terms, provided that each renewal amount does not exceed the 10% in aggregate of the amount of the annual contract amount, and authorize the Human Resources Director to sign all required documents subject to available funding. Your board may recall we brought this request to you a couple months ago in March 2018, where you approved renewal of the county's agreement with CSAC EIA. Subsequent to that time, we've received advice from CSAC EIA that the cost is going up slightly per employee. It's increasing by approximately $1 an employee per month. So we are seeking your approval for the increased amount with the contract of approximately $56,700.
Any questions? Seeing none, anyone in the audience wish to address this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for approval. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 10A, Human Resources Excess Insurance Authority Dental Program, California State Association of Counties. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstention? The item is moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to, I think you're back, Sherry. Huh? Oh, we pulled it, okay. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move to item 11, Public Works and Facilities, Auburn Jail Boiler Replacement. Good morning.
Your building maintenance superintendent with Department of Public Works and Facilities. I'm here today to present two actual plans and spec approval items. The first one is the Auburn Jail Boiler Replacement Project. This project represents an end-of-life cycle like-kind replacement in 3 boiler rooms supporting jail operations, specifically for domestic hot water. Today's approval includes project construction cost estimated at $545,322. The total project cost is estimated to be $575,322, which includes $30,000 for engineering to produce these plans and specifications. The construction costs are included in the fiscal year 18-19 final budget under capital project number 4997, HVAC replacement. We're asking the board to authorize the Director of Public Works and Facilities or designee to award and execute a contract not to exceed $545,322, subject to concurrence of County Council and risk management, and delegating authority to approve any necessary change orders consistent with Placer County Purchasing Manual, Section 2142 of the Public Contract Code. At this time, I would like to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, does anyone in the audience wish to address this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back forward for approval. Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the item 11A, Auburn Jail Boiler Replacement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. Now we'll now move to item 11B, Tahoe Administration Center Generator.
Thank you. This project represents an operational enhancement to combine the second floor and existing first floor emergency circuits using the existing temporary generator. Today's approval includes project construction cost estimated at $342,500. The total project cost is $375,000. $32,500 of that was used for engineering to produce the plans and specifications before you today. Construction costs are included in the fiscal year 18-19 final budget under project number 4535, Tahoe Admin Center Generator. Today we're asking the board to authorize the Director of Public Works and Facilities or designee to award and execute a construction contract not to exceed $342,500, subject to concurrence of County Council and risk management, and delegating authority to approve any necessary change orders consistent with County Purchasing Manual and Section 2142 of Public Contract Code. Any questions of the board?
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, anyone in the audience? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for. It's moved and seconded to approve item 11B, Tahoe Administration Center Generator. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item is moved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll now move to item 12, Community Development Resource Agency. Item A, amendments to Chapter 8, Health and Sanitation, Article 8.10, Cannabis Regulations of the Placer County Code. Mr. Pedretti. Good morning.
The Community Development Resource Agency, and Tim Wegner, our Chief Building Official, is here as well. We're going to tag team this presentation. We're here to introducing two ordinances, amending Chapter 8 of the Placer County Code, the Health and Sanitation section, specifically Article 8.10, Cannabis Regulations. The first ordinance consists of cleanup of inconsistencies that our ordinance has with state law, and also in implementing some of the lessons that we've learned with the year of enforcement. And so that would be the first. The second has to do with the medical cannabis research laboratories in a different definition than what we had brought you previously. In terms of consistency with state law, there's a lot of very simple things. We're replacing some of the terms that we have. We use marijuana rather than cannabis. I guess I could have done that. The medical instead of medicinal, and we're replacing non-medical with adult use. So very simple term changes. We also had a allowed 6 plants per parcel. State law actually allows 6 plants per private residence, so we're cleaning that up, that difference as well. And we're deleting some of the language we had that is now to make it consistent with the passage of Prop 64. In terms of enforcement, I'm going to go ahead and let Tim talk about the enforcement provisions.
Well, thanks, Steve. Chairman Holmes, members of the board, Tim Wegner here, just to share with you a few of our adjustments, recommended cleanups to the enforcement and penalty provisions of Article 8.10. In particular, if I'll go through these kind of highlights individually here, but first we're requesting clarification that while the current ordinance was written with a misdemeanor intent, we just wanted to clarify and be sure that within the body of the ordinance that we're clarifying it is a misdemeanor, so we are adding that language in there. We're also adding language to clarify that only one 72-hour notice to abate will be issued per year, and all subsequent violations will result in immediate issuance of notice of nuisance of abatement hearings. And the purpose of that really is to, for those kind of repeat offenders who, even though we provided notice of 72 hours, our team doesn't, and we don't have interest in going back multiple times a year and providing 72-hour notice with somebody we've already educated about what the process and the guidelines are. We've also clarified that while previously we did have a provision for landlord permission statements, or written statements, I should say, we're now clarifying that it is a written permission statement from the landlord, and that the cannabis should be cultivated in compliance with the ordinance. So we're just clarifying it is a permission statement, just not a written statement of some sort. Further on, staff recommends adding language specifying that the person in possession of the property is subject to penalties and cost recovery. That's just to clarify that it could, the property owner is subject to those already, but we want to be sure that a tenant too, in a situation who has that permission that's cultivating outside those guidelines, could be subject to those penalties as well as the property owner. And before I go on to the penalty section, just one last thing is to clarify that any violation beyond 50 square feet or fraction thereof is would be a violation. So 51 square feet would be a violation today, when 50 square foot is a permissible grow area for medicinal. And on the penalty portion, again, just some things that we have identified, again, with alignment with state law, is the state does allow, or state regulation does require that we provide a period of abatement. So while previously we had a $500 fine at kind of the initial contact, we're removing that to be in alignment with state regulations that says we have to afford a period of abatement. So the $1,000 after the 72 hours per plant violation would still stand today. So we're just removing the $500 initially. Staff recommends also that we found that there was an oversight when we developed this originally, while we applied penalties to many things, including the cultivations, the number of plants, square footage violations, and so forth. We unfortunately had an oversight of when the setback violations, distance to neighbors' residences, fencing, and similar violations of that nature. So we just want to be sure that we're applying a penalty for those intended violations. Staff further recommends setting a $5,000 penalty for dispensaries, manufacturing, or commercial cannabis activities, and there's some room in state regulation for that amount. And again, that's to deter these commercial cannabis activities that can have quite an abundant amount of activity going on, to ensure that this is an item that will curb or deter that. Further clarifying that penalties based on square footage violations apply to both medicinal and adult use cannabis. So the square footage, while we say an adult use at 6 plants, you still can't exceed the 50 square feet. So we just want to be sure that that's clear. And last but not least is we're recommending eliminating the Planning Commission appeal process. So while today a hearing officer's appeal, a hearing officer decision could be appealed to the Planning Commission, we're recommending your board remove that provision and that the hearing officer's decision be final. That's consistent with another provision that we moved forward through a zoning text amendment to the Planning Commission recently with traditional abatements hearings. And I just want to let your board know that the most recent Planning Commission, the Planning Commission rejected that. They did not have interest in another hearing body hearing this. That the Planning Commission wanted to maintain that decision. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that today as we move forward. Even though we're proposing it here today, there has been some action at the Planning Commission level. We just want to make sure you're aware of that. And that's really all I have. I can answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from Supervisor York?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. Right now, we're just talking about the provisions contained in item number 1, correct?
Right.
Yes.
And are we looking at separate action between items number 1 and 2?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
All right. In regards to item number 2, medicinal cannabis research testing laboratories. August of last year, August 15th, a full year ago, your board had a long presentation on cannabis. And in re-listening to this video, the video of that, the board indicated that a true medical laboratory would be acceptable and directed staff to develop an ordinance that would allow cannabis research testing laboratory. On October 3rd, we returned with a hearing item and a proposal to allow testing. Unfortunately, what we proposed, that ordinance potentially allowed testing in support of commercial cannabis activity. As such, your board rejected it and suggested that was not acceptable. And the current ordinance then could be interpreted to prohibit any type of medical cannabis testing laboratories. We had a new request to clarify how the prohibition either applies or does not apply to chemical and forensic laboratories, something that's above and beyond the scope of what we had looked at previously. We reviewed the board direction, and as I indicated, the board had said that a true medical cannabis research lab would be acceptable, but any kind of support of commercial cannabis activity was not. With that in mind, we're now proposing a definition of medicinal cannabis research laboratory that is not subject to prohibition, provided that the laboratory must meet very stringent accreditation requirements, well above and beyond what the state requires right now, that the testing is for medical, health and safety, or forensic purposes, that on-site cultivation would be prohibited, and that a maximum of 3 pounds of processed cannabis would be allowed on-site. In addition, we're making it very clear that testing does not facilitate commercial cannabis activity. We have clarified the definition of commercial cannabis activity, that laboratory testing with intent to sell or facilitate the sale of cannabis or cannabis product is considered commercial cannabis activity. With those provisions, we believe that this meets the intent that the board outlined in previous hearings, and therefore we're bringing this forward. And with that, I will open it up to any questions you might have.
Mr. Petretti,
Yes.
So this testing laboratory will do more than just testing medical cannabis. Will there be other things that they test?
Well, there could be.
Oh.
There could be. But this is, yes, forensic. This is a much more stringent, as I said. There are only relatively a handful of laboratories in the country that would meet this standard.
And they have to have a permit from the Department of Justice or the Drug Enforcement?
I'm not certain if they have to have a permit per se.
You mean in order to conduct research on cannabis? Right. Yeah, they'd have to have a license. But other kinds of research, as I understand it, the medical laboratory does medical research, develops patents on other things, not just cannabis.
But they do have a permit, get a permit.
But they would have to get a permit from the federal government in order to do anything with cannabis.
All right, good.
Just a quick question, Mr. Chairman, on the order of things here. Since I do have a number of comments and questions on the second part, is the chair interested in entertaining a motion maybe on item number 1, and we can dispense with that and then move on to the discussion on item number 2?
Yes, that'll be fine.
Okay, then I would move approval of 12A1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 12A1. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition or any abstentions? Hearing none, the item is moved. And now we can open the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concerns around item number 2 is in my mind, it's kind of putting our traditional order of things on its head. We're going back and we are being asked to entertain changing our ordinance in anticipation that some other governmental agency at some point in the future might allow for some kind of a permit, whereas the county's current practice when it comes to contracts and all the rest is we typically sign last. We make everybody else sign first, and then we sign off on things. And while I am certainly supportive of in concept, as all 5 board members laid out in our previous discussion, I'm certainly supportive of opportunities for true medical research on cannabis, looking at does it really deliver the kinds of medical benefits that we've all heard the claims of. While I'm supportive of that, I'm not at this point supportive of changing our ordinance until somebody has demonstrated to us that they have met the federal standard for being able to conduct that kind of research at a point at which somebody has met the federal standards, and they want to come back to our board and say, okay, the feds say it's okay for me to do this. I'd like to locate here in the unincorporated area. Are you willing to allow it? At that point, with the assurance that the feds have already reviewed and signed off, I think I could support this. I just don't like us doing it preemptively.
Any other comments? Supervisor.
I think that's kind of what this covers, is that they have to have those permits in order to do the work. So I think we're kind of there. I think adding another step just makes it more prohibitive. We add another step to development, it just prohibits that activity. So I'm perfectly fine with going ahead and moving forward and allowing the opportunity, if someone wants to show up having all of the criteria that's been issued that we have elicited in the ordinance, then I think we should be good to go.
If someone's willing to build this facility, they would like to know if it's going to be allowed in this jurisdiction. And before they proceeded to, I mean, what are they going to tell the Department of Justice or Drug Enforcement? Well, we want to do this, but we don't have a place to do it yet. So I would support it the way the item, the way it's written.
It is a bit of a chicken and an egg situation, but the reason for bringing it at this time is more for an economic development reason. The individual who is bringing the proposal forward wants to locate in Placer County, but probably doesn't want to commit the substantial financial resources that are necessary to build the lab. As I said before, cannabis being one part of its medical research, without some assurance that the county wouldn't enforce its ordinance against his lab after he put all that money in. In a sense, it tries to eliminate a potential tension between federal law and local ordinance, similar to what happened when the state passed its medical marijuana legislation. There was a lot of tension that came out of that that led up to the Garden Grove case, where the sheriff refused to provide marijuana confiscated back to the individual because under federal law it was a controlled substance and he didn't feel he could do that. There was nothing that resolved that issue at the time, and this ordinance tries to do that, tries to eliminate that tension ahead of time so that the individual can feel that some assurance that he can put the financial resources toward this project.
I just had one supplemental comment. The irony here is that if the DA in his lab wanted to do this type of activity, we'd have to bring this back before the board in order to clear it. So by delaying it, that doesn't help that situation either. So,
Mr. Chairman, question, if I may, to County Council. You put this in the guise of economic development and the individual wanting to locate his business in Placer County. Isn't his current operation already in Placer County?
I believe it is in the city of Roseville.
Right, but it's in Placer County. And
Sorry, I meant the unincorporated area.
No. And is there any prohibition that you're aware of that the city of Roseville has passed that if this individual is successful in obtaining whatever federal approvals are necessary, he would be prohibited from doing this kind of research where he currently is occupied?
I think they have a similar ordinance that we have, and so I think there's probably that potential that that it could be used to enforce against his lab having access or having cannabis on site.
Do we know if he has approached the city of Roseville with the same concern about modifying their ordinance so he could simply continue operation where he already is?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any other comments? Anybody in the audience wish to address us on this item? Seeing none, what's Robert?
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance, but I want to make a comment. Just as I've stated ongoingly, as we all have, I think as Kirk articulated, that our position as a board has been to not endorse or support the commercial use of marijuana in any way, so I appreciate staff's extra effort to try to articulate as best as we can. But I just want to point out for my position in that regard, as well as for the public's benefit, that I'm sure this is a very fluid circumstance, and we're going to be continuing to deal with this effort. I think we've done a great job. I want to thank Tim in particular for the enforcement of our ordinance that in my district has gone a huge distance, and even just within the last couple of weeks with big illegal grow. So I think we want to continue on focusing on those kinds of things where we agree. But I would just admonish us to keep our eye on a ball that's going to keep moving, and I think we're going to have to continue to deal with that as we move forward.
Go ahead and second that and just add the comment that, as Robert said, this is always going to be a fluid type situation. I think one of the benefits of this particular opportunity, if the lab is brought here, that it will make Placer County pretty much the enforcement mechanism by which to make sure that any consumers are protected from any type of bad things that might happen. It will also provide us the opportunity to prosecute and go after those folks and have the tools to test the soils and for pesticides and those kinds of things, to really bring us, add another layer of tool to both our district attorney and law enforcement. So, and I'm assuming that they have read this as well, and they have looked at it, and they have added their comments to it.
Yes, we met with both the DA and the sheriff.
And I noticed they're not here, so.
All righty. It's been moved and seconded to approve the item. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. And no abstentions. Hearing the item is moved 3-1. Thank you. And now we will adjourn to closed session. Is that correct, Mr. Kelson?
Mr. Chair, just quickly before we go to closed session, we do have the 1 o'clock timed item.
Yeah.
Do you want to come back 15 minutes prior to take up that other?
You're right.
that we need to
Yeah.
do?
That was my intent.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to preempt.
No, that's fine. No, I'm glad you keep me on task. That's what I like about it.
Senior statesman from Auburn.
Hey, the face of the foothills, mister.
The board will now adjourn to closed session for a conference with legal counsel to discuss 3 items of existing litigation and 1 item of initiation of litigation. On the agenda, there's a conference with labor negotiators. That will not be occurring today because there's no news, no developments to report on.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. We're ready to begin our afternoon deliberations. We'll begin with a closed session report.
The board has returned from closed session in a conference with legal counsel. In the case of Bangert versus County, the board unanimously authorized amendment of outside counsel contract to increase the contract amount. In the matter of White versus County, the board unanimously authorized amendment of the outside counsel contract to increase the contract amount. In the estate of Clifford versus County, the board heard a report and gave direction to counsel. And under anticipated litigation, the board unanimously authorized participation in a class action litigation involving the FILT federal program, currently pending in Kane County versus United States. As I mentioned before we went into closed session, there was no conference with labor negotiators in closed session.
That concludes your report. Thank you. Treasurer Windishausen, we're ready for you.
I believe this is your item number 5,
Yes.
and you should have all been provided copies of the changes to the resolution and the bond screening committee rules. And so you have that revised resolution for the record now. And unless you have any other questions, a vote is all that's necessary.
All right. Any questions for the treasurer?
Just that council is comfortable that that provides us what we need.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, this morning, the resolution that was before the board
Right.
Did not take into account the motion.
Right.
And I wanted to have the resolution be consistent with the board's motion.
That's helpful.
Okay. So we already have. Beg your pardon?
5A2 is the motion.
Yeah, 5A2. 5A2, right? Okay.
Now, we did have a motion.
We have a motion and a second, so
That
now
was
is the time.
Supervisor Duran's motion, my second, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to have a motion on this particular resolution for the record.
Oh, okay. Second.
Okay, it's been motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? The item is moved.
Thank you.
So much. All righty. Do you think it'd be a problem if I start the 1 o'clock time right now? I've been advised that we can start the 1 o'clock timed item a little ahead of time, so knowing.
Because it looks like everybody's here.
I was going to say, is there anybody from your office that isn't here at this point?
Exactly.
Dragging along a couple judges for measure.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman,
You bet.
members of the board. Scott Owens, Placer County District Attorney. It's a great honor to me to introduce to you the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of California, McGregor Scott. He is in his second run through that office, and we are very pleased to have him here and welcome him here to Placer County.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm very pleased to be here. And the reason for our time on your agenda today is that my predecessor instituted what I think is a great practice, which is the establishment of what we call the United States Attorney's Award. And each year we present to both an individual law enforcement officer as well as a law enforcement agency a recognition. Special people who work with us very directly to help us further the mission of the United States Attorney's Office and the United States Department of Justice. And I'm very pleased to announce to the board here today that our selection for calendar year 2017 is the Placer County District Attorney's Office. Specifically, the Trident Task Force, supervised and managed out of the DA's office, enforcing the drug laws throughout the region in many different ways. And did you want to call folks up and at this point? We wondered about that.
I always do.
Or do you want to be seen with these folks either? That's the other thing.
Wow.
Well, I've never felt so safe in my life. So what stands out to us with respect to Trident is the team approach. And the motto that I have tried to instill in federal law enforcement in conjunction with our local and state partners is one team, one fight. And the Trident team exemplifies that approach to things. The Trident team, specifically in 2017, helped us with the prosecution of a validated Mexican drug cartel lord who was tried late in 2017 and was recently sentenced to 20 years in a federal penitentiary. I should note that 13 other individuals, members of his organization, all pled guilty and were sentenced to federal prison. Brandon Oliveira, here to my right, was the linchpin of that investigation and prosecution. He made it happen in very simple terms. We are very grateful for that because we at the federal level, as you can imagine, are stretched a little thin. The Eastern District extends from Kern County to the Oregon border and over to the Nevada state line. So we've got a massive jurisdictional approach to things with limited resources. So we have to work, we desire to work, we want to work hand in hand with our local partners. And when we can find the folks at Trident in general and a guy like Brandon in particular, we embrace that. I spoke this morning with one of the lawyers who tried that drug cartel overlord, worked directly with Brandon, and I said, what do you want me to tell the board? He said, tell the board we need more of those kinds of guys. And we do, and we wish we could replicate him. One other point I wanted to make is that part of the approach that we have taken to federal drug enforcement in California is what I've come to refer to as a defense in depth. We, for better or worse, have I-5 going north and south and I-80 going east and west right here. And so much of the drugs that come in from Mexico, they come up I-5, they hang a right on 80, and they go east. And a major problem that's been very well documented on a national scale in places like Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia is the opioid problem. And that has now switched from doctors overprescribing to the smuggling of fentanyl into California and then being transported back to those states for street-level distribution. So we are the hub. And I am very pleased to report to you that in just the last 3-4 months, Trident has been the tip of the spear on helping us to intercept major fentanyl shipments that were being transported via the interstate highway system to go to the east for distribution to the folks back there. One major bust in Modesto, and then one just down the road in Roseville in recent weeks. So they are literally our front line of defense. And while not everything has, we're not going to necessarily look to prosecute everything here in Placer County because we think that's our job on these kinds of cases, we need the folks here to help us do our job. So I'm going to close my mouth now, other than to do one thing, which is to again thank Brandon and his crew, and I'd like to read to the board what is on the plaque that we're going to present to Mr. Owens here in just a moment. Outstanding Law Enforcement Agency, Sacramento Division, Placer County District Attorney's Office. In recognition of the outstanding professionalism and dedicated service of the County of Placer and commitment to law enforcement partnerships in bringing to justice those most violent and dangerous in our communities, resulting in safer neighborhoods for all to enjoy in the Eastern District of California. So, Scott, we are very grateful to you and your team and all that you do. Thank you. Thank you. Scott asked me to just introduce, I'm joined today by Phil Talbert, who is the First Assistant United States Attorney, the #2 in our office, as well as Tim Johnstone, who's my law enforcement coordinator and works directly with the local agencies. Thank you.
I would just also mention that Tim Johnstone, as he says he's the local coordinator, he actually comes to our Placer County Law Enforcement Chiefs meeting on a monthly basis to meet with us about issues. And that's the involvement that we've seen from Mr. Scott's office, and we very much appreciate the collaboration that we get from him. It is an honor and a privilege to accept this award on behalf of Trident. We're very proud to be the office that manages Trident, and I'd like to particularly point out my chief investigator, Jeff Cameron, who just announced yesterday that he's retiring, who has participated in that, and my assistant district attorney, Jeff Wilson, who have been very active with the with the management of Trident, with the oversight of Trident. And we're particularly proud of this man right here, Brandon Oliveira, who spearheads that unit. But while we supervise it, it's overseen by an executive board that consists of the agencies that participate in it. And it's the representation of these 9 different law enforcement agencies that make it worthwhile. They're federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. This unit was formed in October of 2015 under the guidelines of the Office of the National Drug Control Policy's High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Program, HIDA for short. Currently, Trident has representatives from the following law enforcement agencies: Homeland Security, the Auburn Police Department, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, California Highway Patrol, Rockland Police Department, El Dorado County Sheriff's Department, the Bureau of Land Management, the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, California National Guard, and then some members of Trident as well. The principal responsibility of Trident is to target, disrupt, and dismantle major drug trafficking organizations. Through long-term investigation, we've learned many of the drug trafficking organizations that we investigate are not only responsible for supplying large quantities of high-grade marijuana and methamphetamine, but they're smuggling and distributing cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, drug proceeds, and firearms throughout the entire United States. Furthermore, Trident frequently works parcel interdiction investigations of interstate drug traffickers responsible for distributing marijuana, butane honey oil, concentrated cannabis, methamphetamine, cocaine, opioids, and firearms. Since inception, Trident, which was, as I mentioned, was in 2015, has seized the following drugs and drug proceeds through the Central Valley of California: butane honey oil, 64 pounds, methamphetamine, 727 pounds, cocaine, 16 pounds, heroin, 19.7 pounds, fentanyl, 25 pounds. And, to put that in perspective, that's enough to overdose the entire population of Placer County.
Multiple times over.
Yes. 140 firearms, 21,000 rounds of ammunition, 15,610 pounds of processed marijuana, 175,855 marijuana plants, 178 state and federal arrests, and drug proceeds totaling $9.3 million, approximately. In 2016, they were recognized nationally with the HIDA Award for Investigative Excellence and honored in Washington, D.C. And in 2018, they were chosen as the Interdiction Unit of the Year by the International Narcotics Interdiction Association and honored in Chicago, Illinois. These folks define what it means to be a team and to collaborate. And we're very honored to be a part of this organization. Thank you. Brandon, you want to say a few words, buddy? You and your team.
Thank you very much for having us here today. We're incredibly humbled and honored to be here. I'd like to thank McGregor Scott for this prestigious honor. It truly means the world to all of us. I'd like to thank my bosses, the District Attorney Scott Owens, the Assistant District Attorney Jeff Wilson, and my Chief Jeff Cameron. The amount of support that these guys give us is truly phenomenal, and it's why we are here today. I'd also like to thank all of the agencies that represent Trident. Without all of their resources, we wouldn't be here. And most importantly, I'd like to thank my team. These guys, I've said it before and I'll say it again, this is the most unselfish group of men I've ever worked with, and women. They are truly deserving of all the recognition in the world, and I'm incredibly humbled and professionally honored to be here to accept this award with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Guler.
I'm curious, who came up with the name?
I did.
I mean, a trident's a very precise weapon, used for one thing, spearfishing, pretty much. That's pretty much all it's good for. That and intimidating when it's in somebody's hand. But I think that is a nice summary of what you guys are all about. You're very precise, and when focused, you have consequences that are felt. So So congratulations, that's great.
Thank you.
Supervisor Duran?
Yes, yes, thank you very much. I'm just curious, is everybody here with the DA's office, with the team here? Or are they from different agencies or?
They're all from various different law enforcement agencies.
Excellent. Good, all right, well, welcome.
Well, on behalf of the board, you know, this is unprecedented. I've never seen this kind of an award presented before the Board of Supervisors to have the U.S. District Attorney or the U.S. Attorney. Yeah, and you folks show up for this award is just amazing. Kind of gives me goosebumps. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for the amazing work that you've done. We don't know about it all the time, and maybe we don't want to know about it all the time, but you do a great job in protecting the citizens and our young people in Placer County, and I just want to thank you very much for that. And I don't know if there's any other comments, so thank you very much. All righty.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. We done? Yeah. That's very nice, huh? Okay, that concludes the business before this board.